women look for the right person, guys often look for the right timing. I feel like that was kind of where I was at. I was like, okay, now it's the time. I'm done with school. I've got all this work experience done. I'm going into business and I'm going to be moving away. And I knew that was coming down the pipeline. And so I was like, I really want to have a family.
The best marriage is that you each are focused on yourselves individually, but then you also have this third unit, which is the marriage, that you're both equally focusing on that. So first you take care of yourself and make sure that you're showing up as your best and that you're healed. But then this is like another piece to the puzzle where you're both contributing, and it's not even 50-50. It's 100 and 100. Welcome back to the Create with Kate podcast. I am beyond excited for the guest that I have in the virtual studio today. I have Adam Allred, and he is just fantastic. I have been following him for quite a while now. And what I love about Adam is how honest he is. He just says it like it is, but you can really feel his heart in the content. And that's what I'm always talking about, is like, you have to be fired up and it has to be authentic, and that's how you're going to connect. Doesn't matter if you have 5 people or 500,000. So welcome to the studio, Adam. So happy to have you.
Kate, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
First of all, I want to get into some of the juicy topics. And then just so you know how I found you, I mean, I think you came up on my feed probably from one of the guys that I coach and that I follow. So I work with men on building their personal brand, but specifically my specialty is getting them to open up and to be vulnerable so that they can actually connect with their audience. They love your content, all of them, and I do too. So I want to kind of get into some of these like more controversial topics on divorce, masculine, feminine roles, and how we can't really be in the middle. We have to make a decision on what we stand for and stick to it. And I think that that's why you've been so popular, is that you have a lot of conviction and you have strong values. And we are craving that as a society right now, because I think so many people are afraid to take a stand for what they actually believe in because they don't want to be judged by others. So I want to start with divorce. So you've been divorced, right?
I have, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? How old were you when you got married?
Yes, it's kind of an interesting story because I didn't get married until I was 30. So I waited for a while. Like, I felt like I was kind of going into it with what I thought at the time was being more mature and less, impulsive, like in my youth. So I was just talking to a buddy about this earlier today. For guys, women look for the right person. Guys often look for the right timing. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like that was kind of where I was at. I was like, okay, now it's the time. I'm done with school. I'm got all this work experience done. I'm going into business and I'm going to be moving away. And I knew that was coming down the pipeline. And so I was like, I really want to have a family. Like, that's important to me. And I haven't taken it that seriously, like with my younger years. Like, I just was having fun and traveling the world, hanging out with friends. So it was really kind of a timing thing instead of maybe like being smart about the right person. Mm-hmm. With that being said, I dated my first wife for we dated for 18 months. So it wasn't like something super quick. We dated for a little while and got along. And when I married her, I felt like we were a good match. I was like, okay, we get along. We respect each other. We've gone through some hard things together. Like, she moved out with me to Philadelphia, where I started my first garbage company. And that was difficult, like a lot of stress. And she went through some hard times, but we were really good together. And then we got married. And as soon as we got married, everything changed immediately. It went from like, hey, we got along, to suddenly it was just not okay. Like, it wasn't working. And I'm not a divorce kind of guy. Like, none of my family had been divorced. Like, my parents have never been divorced. Like, I always was like, you work through things until you make it work. You just figure it out. But within like 3 months of us being married, we were already talking about divorce. Like, that's
within
how quick
3 months. Wow.
Yeah, within 3 months, that was something we were talking about. And she got pregnant early on, so she was a little bit. She was, okay, I wouldn't say older, but she was 28 when we got married. I was 30, and she'd been married before. She'd been in a previous marriage for 7 years, no kids. And so she was eager to have kids. She wanted to have children, so did I. So we were trying like kind of right out the gates. And then we were talking about divorce. It just got bad so fast that we're like, let's hold off. But at that point, she was already pregnant. And
So how long were you married?
so I ended up being in that marriage for 8.5 years.
Oh,
We had three
wow.
kids together. Yeah. So it was a long stretch. And for me, when I found out we were pregnant, she was pregnant, I was like, okay, well, this is just what I'm doing now. It
Mm-hmm.
does, whatever isn't working between her and I, it's not about us anymore. It's about the kids. That's how my mind switched. And you get a lot of really bad. I talk about this a lot on social media, but as men, we get some of like just the worst kind of framework and advice from pretty much every source out there. So, I'm curious how this applies to women because obviously I'm not a woman and I don't know what you guys experience and what you guys go through. But as men, we are conditioned, especially if you're a man that cares about having a family and being a family man, we're conditioned basically to just take copious amounts of abuse and disrespect and to
Mm-hmm.
just put up with it. And as part of just being stoic, and like just stay in the course and understanding she's emotional and where she's coming from. And you get this from church, you get this from family, you get this from, I heard this from everybody. And I didn't know how bad it was in my marriage until afterwards when I was talking to people about it.
Mm-hmm.
But when it would come up while I was married, it was always just kind of like anybody that was listening to me that I was talking to was just like, oh, marriage is just tough. You just got to understand she's just being emotional. You got to understand, you got to, be stoic and just take it like, like a man on the chin. And so you end up doing that and it doesn't get better. It just keeps getting worse and worse and
Yeah.
worse. And so, yeah, we went through that
What were
really
the
difficult.
main conflicts? Was it money? Was it like what? Can you pinpoint anything that
Yeah.
was the point of?
And I'm going to obviously be speaking from one point of view. So
Sure,
there's
sure.
two sides to this story. But for me, when we got married, what I think ultimately was the root of the problem was there often happens in marriages is there's no longer accountability.
Mm-hmm.
When you're dating, you have to act a certain way because if you don't, the person's going to leave if you're serious about them, if you like them.
Right.
So I don't even think it's being deceptive. I just think when there's
Yeah,
accountability kind of baked into the program, everybody shows up with their best self. And when there's not accountability,
totally.
it goes out the window. That's why a woman or a man, for that matter, can disrespect their spouse at home, but go to work and be very respectful to their boss
Mm-hmm.
because there's accountability. They'll get fired. And so I think there was that accountability the first when we were dating. And then as soon as we got married, it was like accountability went out the window. And I never changed. I didn't have any skeletons in my closet. There wasn't anything like I
Yeah.
was keeping from her. I wasn't on drugs or addicted to porn. I wasn't cheating on her. I didn't do any of those things. I was kind of the same dude that she picked up. But then when we got married, it was like nothing I did was right. It was just constant amounts of copious amounts of criticism,
Like
suspicion.
just she had trust issues. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, amongst other things. Yeah, like that
Okay.
was one of them for sure. Like everything that I did, I never even flirted with a girl when I was
Yeah.
married. I'm not that type of person, but in her mind, there was always something that was going on that she had to get to the bottom of. And so that's exhausting because you're getting interrogated all the
Mm-hmm.
time and you haven't done anything, and
Sure.
nor have you haven't done anything at all. And then there was just so much criticism. Like I would equate it to her like you bought Doritos. We'd have these conversations like you bought Doritos. I'm
Yeah.
Doritos. Like I'm not Twizzlers. Like you knew what you were
Yeah.
picking up and you liked it when you picked it up, but now you want Twizzlers tomorrow and the day after that you want Cheez-Its and it's a moving target anyway. So even if I
Mm-hmm.
could change to become a new snack, for lack of a better analogy, it wouldn't be good enough anyways because the day after that it would change. And ultimately what I think was going on, and I have a lot of respect for her and she's a phenomenal mother. So
Yeah.
I don't want to just be like talking poorly on her, but you're asking
Sure.
me direct questions. I'll try to answer it the best that I can. Ultimately, I think she has a lot of unhappiness with herself and a lot of stuff that she hasn't worked on and healed from her past, from previous marriage, from other things that I wasn't cognizant of going into the relationship. I wasn't equipped to even deal with because nobody talked to me about it. I had no concept of what this would be like being married to somebody who wasn't healed and was very much
Mm-hmm.
unhealed. And so I think ultimately I was just her emotional punching bag, like for her own problems. And instead of her owning it and taking accountability, like, I can't make you happy. I can't do that. Only you can make you happy. I can
Sure.
be here to support you and I can encourage you and I'll do those things. But I can't make you into a happy person. I think because she was deeply unhappy, that just manifested in a myriad of different ways in the relationship. And And I'm not pretending like I was some sort of saint. I didn't know how to handle it, so I handled things really poorly. I was
Mm-hmm.
really reactive to a lot of the things she would come at me with. But at the end of the day, it's just at the end of the day, I felt like I was really trying to make it work, and I was one person in there that was really trying to do the heavy lifting, and it was you just can't make a relationship work with one person trying to do it.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. So I'm also divorced, and there was addiction issues involved in my situation. Um, but like what I came to realize through that process was, yeah, accountability is everything. And we can't change the other person. We can only change ourselves. And I heard somebody say, like, you have the best marriages that you each are focused on yourselves individually, but then you also have this third unit, which is the marriage, that you're both equally focusing on that. So first you take care of yourself and make sure that you're showing up as your best and that you're healed. But then this is like another piece to the puzzle where you're both contributing, and it's not even 50-50. It's like it's 100 and 100. And I thought that that was a good way of looking at it, because I do think that so many people, I mean, the divorce rate is so high, and it's like, I think it's because people are not emotionally aware of their wounds and how to cope with them and heal. And then we get in relationships. I mean, I feel like I also jumped into my marriage because I wanted to be a mother, and my clock was ticking. And so I don't know that I was fully aware of that, but when I look back, I do think that was kind
Yeah.
of subconscious of my main motivation. Um, and so I think, yeah, I think that happens to a lot of people where they maybe aren't looking at the entire person and their core values like on a deep level. So I
Yeah, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I hear when people are dating, they will say things like, oh, well, you can't talk about this or that on whatever the first date. But it's like, shouldn't we be talking about those things and be like super honest right away? Maybe
Yeah,
we
well,
can
I mean,
avoid that.
at the end of the day, dating is ultimately just interviewing, right, for the job.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, if
really
you take out all
is.
the emotion and chemistry and Hollywood out of it, you're really saying, "Hey, I want a family. I want to have
Mm-hmm.
a partner in life. I want to be a partner in life. So let me interview for the best person for the job," which means you want to ask those types of questions, and which means also that you want to keep emotions at bay a little bit. And it's exciting. And the problem is like falling in love and feeling the chemistry is easy to do. Uh, but it clouds a lot of the rational thinking, like you're talking about having like real heart to heart conversations, or having boundaries, or clearly
Mm-hmm.
articulating what your boundaries are and what theirs are, and like what does managing expectations in a relationship, like what do I expect. So often we avoid those types of conversations to keep the peace, because we don't want to lose that relationship, because we're
Mm-hmm.
so needy for that relationship, and we're so hooked on this drug of chemistry, and somebody's witnessing us, and we get to share our lives with somebody, that we don't have those conversations to keep the peace. But the problem is when you do that, you're not keeping the peace. You're just kicking it down the road, and it's going to get worse. You bottle that stuff up,
Mm-hmm.
you let stuff, so to speak, roll off your back, and it doesn't roll off your back. It's you store it, and then it comes out later. And so again, nobody talks to you about this. I've never
No.
had anybody have a conversation about how practical it is to just make sure you're digging into it like a relationship, like it's an interview. Of course, you want to have feelings and you want to feel that type of attraction for one another. But one thing that you just said that I think is super important in the relationship, but post the relationship, you made that point that somebody shared with you, that a relationship to be healthy is two people having an individual journey, but they come and share a journey together. They have this like side quest sounds trivial. It's not a side quest. It's
Mm-hmm.
more important than a side quest, but they're sharing something that is ultimately secondary to their own progression and development
Mm-hmm.
and accountability. I absolutely believe that now. I was taught and conditioned through church, family, society that your life kind of started when you got married and your wife was your purpose. And I've since learned that that's just a really terrible way to approach it. You are your purpose. You are the most important thing that you can work on is you, making it the best version. I don't mean that in a selfish way. I mean making yourself into the most dynamic, best, expansive, powerful version, accountable, self-aware version of yourself that you can possibly be, and then carrying that same purpose into the relationship. And when you have two people do that, it's a really healthy, dynamic, incredible, brilliant. I can speak from personal experience. It's just amazing when you have two people that love themselves already. Again, not in like a conceited way, but in a like healthy self-love. They know who they are. They know where they're going. And then you come together and you share that. It's amazing. But I think what's going on in society right now, which is a pandemic, speaking of a real pandemic, is that you have a lot of people that are really unhealthy. We've thrown out traditional values. We've broken up the traditional family. And so people are growing up in this very complex, very unhealthy world, and they're unhealthy themselves, speaking also from personal experience, and they don't recognize that they're unhealthy, but they're needy for a relationship. And that to me is like the biggest indicator that you are unhealthy is if you feel like you need a relationship. Because if you are happy with yourself, you don't need it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's great if it comes along, you're open to it and you're ready to respond to it. If the right person comes along, the right energy, the right authenticity, you're ready to jump into that, but you don't need it. Like the only validation I need is from me and God now, and I'm going to live my life that way. And when you don't need a relationship anymore and you meet somebody else that doesn't need a relationship, but you actually both like each other, man, it gets pretty freaking awesome. But I think most people are going into the dating world from a place of need. And I think that's the canary in the mine shaft. I think that's a huge red flag just out the gates.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Even for me personally, I think that of course, and nobody is going to admit that when they're feeling that way, like, oh no, I don't need anyone. But that your behavior will speak, the truth. But I think that the issue is the the truth is nobody wants to face the truth. Nobody wants to face their own shit, right? Like they
Their own
just want
mess.
to
Yeah.
bury it. And and that is what I love about your content is that you just say it like it is or however you feel. But I think that's how we actually progress, is if we can. I'm 37 years old. When I was 35, just 2 years ago, I learned that accountability is love. Like, what a concept. I thought the opposite. So I was very much like a people pleaser, but it didn't get me anywhere. And so I had to completely shift my way of thinking. And I think so many people are going through the motions of life like that, where they think they're doing the right thing. Like, even you thought you were being a good husband by, I guess, not or putting your own needs, or sounds like maybe you weren't speaking up in that first marriage.
No, I spoke up. No, I would, like I said, I would get reactive and we would have spectacular fights that
Oh,
I was very much complicit in.
spectacular.
Spectacular fights, like all the time. What I didn't do was have accountability, which is what you're saying. You're speaking like enormous amounts of truth right now that are going to be hard for a lot of people to hear. What I recognized in that marriage is I would be reactive, but I wouldn't have a line. I didn't hold boundaries. I didn't have anything to hold her accountable to. And so it was just always a slugfest. It never got anywhere. We never solved anything. When I went into, it's interesting. I went into this. We met with a counselor, a female counselor who had actually been divorced herself, which was an interesting. I thought I was just going to get raked over the coals because I was like, I'm the dude, and we're going
Yeah.
to a female counselor who's been divorced. She's gonna hate men. But I was like, you know what? Whatever we got to do. This is like 4 or 5 years into our marriage. Whatever we got to do, I'll try it. Whatever we can try to turn this ship around. And our first session was so bad she separated us. So she's like, yeah, she's like, I'm
Really?
gonna next week we're gonna meet separately. Like that was her thing. And
Wow.
I went in the next week thinking I was gonna get it. And she said this isn't your fault. And I didn't believe what she said for a minute. I mean, you're living in this world
Yeah.
that it becomes your reality. And she's like, this isn't your fault. Like there's things you can work on, but this isn't on you. And then she said something that's just stuck with me. It's not like this haunting voice from the past. She said, here's the deal. If you're not prepared to divorce her, I can't do anything with her. And
Mhm.
this is coming from a marriage counselor. She's like, unless there's some accountability on the table, I can't bring her to the table either. She's externalized everything so much. Everything's your fault, and she's taken no accountability for this. That unless you're actually willing to leave her, we can keep meeting, but I really won't be able to probably do much. And I wasn't willing to. I had the kids, and I was like, I can't leave. We have 3 kids now, and I'd rather, go through hell for the rest of my life than have any of this kind of blowback on my kids. And but her voice was prophetic. I mean, nothing got better, and the counseling didn't work. And 4 years later, we were finally getting to the punchline that counselor could see all those years prior. It's
Did
crazy.
you make that call, or was it mutual, or who?
So at the end, and I give her credit for this, I say this with respect to her. She was the one pushing for the divorce at the end.
Okay.
I was so just doing the guy thing, captain going down with the ship. So, I'm in it for the kids, just whatever comes my way, you just suck it up and you just keep going. And she finally was just like, we'd gotten in so many fights, we'd threaten divorce and throw it at each other like it was,
It didn't
as an
mean
attack.
anything. Yeah.
It didn't mean anything. It was always just a way to like try to hurt the other person. But she finally she came to me, and it wasn't an attack. She's just like, this isn't working, and I couldn't see it. We talked about it every night after the kids went to bed for like a week straight, and I finally got on board for it. I was finally like, okay, first of all, I can't stop you anyways. I mean, you have your freedom to choose whatever you want to do. And then I started to kind of see her point, like really consider the option of getting a divorce and what that could mean. And it was the first time in 8.5 years of my life, 8 years of my life, that there was some sort of light, like maybe there was something different, and it didn't have to be horrible for the kids. There could be a way we could
Hmm.
work through this amicably. Like there could be a way that we could separate up without it being too messy. We don't have to go to court and fight each other. Like we were having those types of conversations, which we never had in our relationship ever. Like it was the first time ever. And so I got on board for it. And then as soon as I did, she changed her mind. And then she's
Oh,
like, no, I think we should work it out. And I was that was the morning she told me that, because we went to bed the
that's
night
so
before.
interesting.
We were on
Like,
the same page, and it was like, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this together. Like we're going to
yeah.
separate together. It sounds odd to say it that way, but that was kind of like how we were communicating. And then the next morning, it's like, no, I don't want a divorce anymore. And I went to the gym that morning, and before I went to work, and I couldn't even work. I mean, that was the worst day of my life, honestly. Like because I was so conflicted. I was like, oh, I guess I got to make this work, but I just saw this glimmer of hope. I
Yeah.
just saw something that wasn't just pure misery for the rest of my existence, and something that we could work on together. And now she doesn't want to do it, so we're not going to be doing it together. So what does that mean? It's going to be a mess. So I can't push for it. Now
Right.
we just got to. That's how my mind was working, and I end up having. And that was the worst day of my life, and also maybe one of the best days of my life. I had a really profound spiritual experience that day that gave me a lot of clarity, and then helped me to just
What
stay the
happened?
course. Well, um, so I couldn't work out that morning at all. Like normally the gym's my therapy. I just work out exercise your demons in the gym, and I couldn't. And so I went in the gym shower to get ready for work, and I couldn't even get out of the shower. I just sat there on the floor of that gym shower for like hours. I couldn't get out of it. Like I was in so much. I think I was losing my mind. I've never felt like that in
Yeah.
my life. Like it was like I'm losing my mind right now, and I know because in my mind I know I'm supposed to go back and make this work, I guess, but I can't. But I know I'm supposed to, and it was like this huge like conflict. And at the same, I'm praying and talking to God. And I've always been a man that believes in God. I've always tried my best to align myself with what I believe is the truth and this higher power. And so I'm talking to God in this just turmoil, and I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm
Yeah.
not too proud. I'm not a crier. I don't cry over anything. But I was just like, that's how messed up I was in that shower, trying to do it quietly so nobody outside the shower could
Yeah.
could hear me in there. I was just it sounds really pathetic now that I'm telling it, but
No, I mean, it sounds really real. And like, I mean, I'm sure you're not the only one that has experienced this.
yeah, I think it's good to talk about it for these reasons. One, it's healthy, but it's also just good because there are so many people that probably can relate to varying degrees. But anyways, I remember like I don't know how long I'd been sitting there just just in total turmoil, and then this voice came into my head, and it was I knew it was God talking to me. Like I've only had a couple of experiences like this in my life, but I knew it was because the second I heard this voice, everything became calm. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was so deafeningly calm. Like the chaos and insanity was gone, and I was at complete peace. I don't know how to describe it. It was instantaneous. Like it was so profound, like instantly, like it was like God, it was like Jesus on the Sea of Galilee calming the storm. It was like suddenly it was just calm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so shocked that I kind of sat there in this emptiness for a minute. And then the voice came again, and God said, "Son, what is it that you want to do?" And I mean, I wasn't prepared for that. It wasn't my voice. I'm not asking myself what I want to do. There was something that just came through all the chaos and asked me, what is it that I wanted to do? And I thought about it for a long time. I stayed in that shower, but I was at peace now. There wasn't any turmoil anymore. There wasn't any emotion to it anymore. It was just calm. And I really thought, what is it that I want to do? And then I said, I thought after a while, I said, God, I mean, if I'm being really, really honest, I don't want to be married
Mm-hmm.
anymore. If I'm really honest about what I really, really want. And and this epiphany came back to me immediately after that. It said, well, if you don't do it now, you'll be back here in 18 months. It was like
Mm-hmm.
a specific time frame. Like you'll be
So
back doing the same.
interesting. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't like God was telling me to get divorced or not. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
finally helped me see what I really wanted, and then gave me the ability to do that, to move forward. And so after that experience, I never looked back once. There was never a second thought about
Wow.
whether it was going to be a divorce or not, or whether I was going to try and work it out. It was just like I know what I need to do now. And that same day when I walked out of that bathroom, having been the lowest of my entire life ever, was at that moment. I walked out into a world that had color in it again. I was like, I could hear birds chirping again. I was like, I'm going forward with this, and there's going to be consequences to it. It's going to be hard. I'm going to do my best to own up to that. I'm going to do my best to do right by my kids, but I'm moving forward. And it gave me so much like oxygen back in the
Mm-hmm.
room. Like there was some place to go. And even though post-divorce life didn't look thrilling at all, at least I wouldn't have to just drown in this empty sea trying to keep your head
Yeah.
above the water. You could swim somewhere, and at least you could hold on to a rock or something. Whatever post-divorce life looks like, it was going to be better than just staying in abject misery.
Yeah, no, I think that's really powerful. Can I remember those same emotions of feeling like, well, I am going to stay in this for the kids. Like it doesn't matter what happens to me or the pain that I am experiencing, like whatever, I can handle it because I'm going to keep my family together. And but then you just at a certain point and you're trying all these things and it's just not working. And and then I remember I learned through all the counseling how to have boundaries because like I said, I was a people pleaser. Well, the moment that I started to have boundaries, he didn't like the boundaries, so he ended up just saying like, I think we should go our separate ways. And I was like, wow, here I'm like in it, right, to win it. And and then all I did was lay down a boundary. And then he just said, and this was after 12 years, and he's like, yeah, I think we should just go our separate ways. And I'm like, but I remember in that moment, even though those words were so hurtful, because I'm like, what am I, your high school girlfriend? Like, you're acting like we've only gone out for a few months. Like I've literally given you 12 years of my life, and you're the father of my children. And but then when I got in my car, I felt that same kind of peace. Like it was so messed up what I was hearing, but then I just felt calm. And so I trusted God that okay, I guess this is the direction you want me to go. But I really struggled to accept that for so long because of the kids. That was my biggest fear, was like, I cannot do this to my kids. Because I grew up with divorced parents. So were yours still together, or are yours together?
To this
Yeah.
day, yeah.
So yeah, I had some wounds myself, but yeah, I can relate to feeling that peace. I want you to give us some insight on men that feel this, because I think the problem that I see is that many men have a lot of shame and they don't know how to deal with this shame, and they attach their identity to external things, like maybe their job or their family, like these outside of themselves. And I see so many men that are just broken. And I want to know what you think. How do we solve that problem? Or what do they need to hear to give them hope?
So, yeah, that is a really good question, and I run into this all the time, and it's something that I've thought a lot about, and I've actually been involved in training. Part of my work is training guys, sales reps to go out. This is my company. I build it. It's built on door-to-door sales reps, and so I've hired literally thousands of young men, mostly some young women, and trained them and prepared them and managed them during some of the hardest times of their lives. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those lessons translate into the general, kind of general communications. And one thing that I would tell, I can't stress enough for guys, is that you don't focus on the external. As guys, to your point, men are, we look for external validation. So we look to have the house, we look to have the boat, we look to
Mm-hmm.
have the beautiful wife, we look to have all these look a certain way physically or whatever that is. And the problem with that is that if those things ever get taken away from you, it destroys your identity. And
Mm-hmm.
so a divorce, for example, for a man from that perspective, of the masculine perspective, it's completely devastating. Yeah, I lost everything, all the money that I'd earned in my life, went gone in the divorce, and I lost 50% of my custody with the kids, and I lost the external validation of having a family and being a family man, and I lost there was a lot of other things I felt like were getting taken away from me, and because of that, it made it acutely painful, and it is for everybody that goes through a divorce. What I really highly stress to men is to focus on the inputs. Like, that's what really matters, is what kind of character are you developing? Because if you will focus on the inputs, and in other words, if you make you your primary purpose, if you make you the best version that you can be, and you do that repeatedly, and you work on that every single day, and you wake up and say, okay, what does the best version of me look like? What does that look
Mm-hmm.
like if I can imagine the superhero version of myself? Okay, they act like this, and they talk like this, and they do this, and they have these types of people around them, and this and that. Then you just start to try and move towards that with inputs. You're like, okay, well, that requires that I'm going to have to get up and go to the gym because the perfect version of me looks like he's in shape. And that means I'm going to have to, get a little bit more education and develop some skills, because that perfect version of me, he's making good money and he's
Yeah.
providing well for people. And you start working on the inputs. It's not that you don't have goals in terms of external validations, but those things, when they come, they're no longer the point. They're basically just mile markers on this road of self-progression. And you're
Mm-hmm.
no longer seeking external validations. They're great when they come. It feels great when you get an external validation, but you're seeking validation from yourself. Like, dude, I did well today. Like, I kicked butt
Right.
today. I was better today than I was yesterday. And when you fail, you don't beat yourself up. You're like, all right, bro, you coach yourself. You talk to yourself like you're somebody you like, and you just keep putting in the effort. And when you do that enough, all of the external validations in life that you want will show up. And now when they do show up, you're prepared to manage them well, right? Now, like, you're healthy because and it goes back to like going into a relationship. Like, you had boundaries with your ex-husband that you were setting down. The dangerous thing, the scary thing, I shouldn't say, the scary thing about boundaries is that one of two things are going to happen when you lay boundaries down. Either it's going to elevate the relationship to a
Mm-hmm.
healthier place, or it's going to end it.
Right.
And the only way you can really cope with it ending is if you're already comfortable with yourself and you say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you know what, I love myself and I respect myself enough not to be disrespected anymore. I won't let this kid
Mm-hmm.
inside of me, this little boy that I'm responsible for, this little girl, I'm not going to let him be disrespected anymore. That's the person in this world that I have to protect the most. And that doesn't mean my children aren't a massive priority. They are. I would lay down my life. I'd give everything for them. But ultimately, I have to protect this first, because unless I'm healthy in here, unless I'm know who I am and what I'm doing here, I can never be a good husband. I can never be a good
Right.
father. I can never be a good friend or a business partner or anything else. I can't do it. So it's really about taking care of yourself and making sure that you do hold boundaries. And when you hold boundaries, you have to be willing to let things go. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really hard for us when we're not healthy. And it is even when you are healthy. It's hard to let things go that you love and you had your hopes set on. But when you are only seeking for internal validation from yourself and from your God, for me, from my God, then everything else is just starts to kind of make sense, and everything else starts to gradually fall into place. And you do that long enough, and suddenly, you know 2 years later, you're a completely different person than that guy that got rocked by a divorce 2 years prior. Suddenly you're like, life is great and it's
Yeah.
vibrant and things working out, and you're attracting all this positive energy because you're putting in these inputs and putting out positive energy into the world. And you ultimately, the karma effect is real. Like what you put out, you get back. What you become, you attract. It's just what it is.
When did you get divorced? What year was that?
Oh, yeah, I'm terrible with years, but it was
Or
5 or 6 years ago.
okay,
So
so
what is
five
that?
or 6 years ago. Okay. I guess it doesn't matter what year. I was just trying to figure out, yeah, how long it's been. So
Yeah.
your, I guess, and how that would relate to sales, is that, yeah, it's not instant gratification, right? Like you put in the work every day and then you'll see a result. But that is the other problem with society today, is that we want things now. And because of that, I think it does create a lot of weak people, and men and women, because I think it's on both ends. And that leads me to this question, because I want to speak to some things that I hear about from women and dating in their 30s. Uh, and they like kind of make these justifications for this behavior. So they're looking for a high value man, right? Everything's, high value man and woman, right? That's the trend. Um, but then they're not showing up and putting in the daily actions uh, that would attract a high value man. So they're justifying maybe sleeping around, right? Because, oh, well, I'm just having fun and guys can do it, so I can do it. But a high value man, I wouldn't define that as someone that sleeps around. So then they wonder, okay, well, why am I not attracting any of these great men? But that's how you're behaving. So why are people so out of alignment with belief and action?
The cognitive dissonance, there's probably a lot of factors for it, but the culprit number one is probably Hollywood, to be honest with you. I mean, think about how many romance stories you see where I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like Pretty Woman. I haven't ever been asked this question. This is a great question, by the way. So, like Pretty Woman or
I
50
love
Shades
that
of Grey.
movie.
There you go. And I'm not saying there's not some value in them. I'm just saying there's a concept that women, that when lightning strikes, it's just going to show up for them in the form of a perfect looking man that just is ready
True.
to,
Yeah.
he's already arrived. He's got all the money in the world. He's successful. He's composed. He's everything. And he's just going to go pick you out of the many women that he has the option to choose from, because a guy like that has unlimited options.
Sure.
And so it's a fairy tale, and it's a romantic fairy tale, and it's attractive, and I understand why that's appealing to the psyche for men and women, but especially for women. But reality is that you attract what you are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it always is. It's not what you say you want. You can say all day what you want, but ultimately you're going to attract exactly what you are. And if the world isn't giving you what you want, it's because you haven't become what you want. You're not there
That's
yet. And
good.
so you have to just take extreme ownership. And we live in a society, to your point, that accountability is a swear word. I mean, it's horrifying to people to like have to take accountability for their lives, and it's horrifying to have to look at yourself with some awareness, some self-awareness, and be like,
Yeah.
I'm a mess. I am a
Right.
mess. And what I think I'm owed, I'm not really owed. Nobody owes me anything. And if I want it, I'm going to have to work really hard at it.
Do you know Andy Elliott? Have you done a podcast with him or anything?
I haven't. No, I know of him though, but I
Oh,
haven't done
you
anything with him.
should totally do one with him. Yeah. I'm putting that into the universe right now. Cause yeah,
We'll have to make it happen.
he's extreme accountability, but he's also
Yeah.
super loving. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's kind of what you're saying, but continue. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Well,
interrupt you.
to what you said earlier, which I think was profound, accountability is love. Like everybody, so think about a relationship. Like everybody can fall in love. Everybody can feel great and be all excited and all these endorphins and whatever else. That's the easy part of it. The hard part of a relationship is actually managing it well, like going into
Right.
it, like the nuts and bolts, right? Like getting into the weeds with it and saying, okay, how do you manage a relationship well? Well, you keep it healthy. How do you keep it healthy? You have boundaries and you have accountability and you have clear communication. This isn't always easy. And when something isn't going right, you address it immediately. And you do it with respect and love. You don't be reactive to it to the best that you can. But you address things head on right when they happen. You don't kick the can down the road. Like, for example, I felt like I was conditioned to do for my whole first marriage, was to just not really hold boundaries and not have any accountability. But accountability and managed expectations, it not only saves more marriages than feeling love does any day of the week, but it creates healthy relationships. when you both understand where the other person's coming from and you love and respect each other enough to support them in that, and vice versa, you can really start to build something. That's a solid foundation to build a relationship on. So it is accountability, and accountability, it starts with self-accountability. And you have to, I haven't listened to much of Andy Elliott, but anybody who's preaching extreme accountability, or I read Jocko's book, Extreme
Oh, I
Ownership.
love him. Yeah.
He's a stud, and his book, Extreme Ownership, is a must read for anybody. You have to own every aspect of your life. That doesn't mean you can control everything that happens in your life. There's going to be events you have no control over. There's going to be events that didn't come because of your behavior. There's going to be stuff you just have to go through, but you control your reaction to it.
Right.
You can control whether that event becomes a catalyst for you becoming a victim, or whether it becomes a catalyst for you developing and growing. Everything is an opportunity, and if you have to own that you are responsible for for the world that you are in. Completely. Again, that doesn't
Right.
mean you can control the external things all the time, but by taking ownership for your life, there's a correlation, like we're talking about. There's a correlation between the external things in your life as well.
Yeah.
When you own that and you're leveling up and you're getting better, those things, your real world actually starts to change and morph and become beautiful, and
Did
vibrant.
you did you have a mentor? How did you learn all of this?
No, I didn't have a traditional mentor. I read a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and so I try to just listen to people who I think are brilliant. And so I probably have a whole long laundry list of mentors that fall into that category. But honestly, I think this stuff is inside us. If we're willing to dig deep, you can find the answers to a
Yeah.
lot of these things, and they start to reveal themselves when you can get out of your own head and kind of get into a place of self-awareness, and things become really clear when your framework is extreme ownership. When you know you're responsible for everything, your entire paradigm on life shifts
I agree.
dramatically. And you're endowed with power in that day. Like,
Yeah.
you become a powerful person the second you say, I own this. This is me. And my life is mine to do with. This is my responsibility. It's not somebody else's. No one's coming to save
Right.
me. There's not going to be some relationship that comes save me. God's not going to suddenly pull me out of this because I prayed hard enough. Like, this is my time to create whatever I want to create in this life. And there's no one else. It's me. That's my responsibility.
Yeah. No, I love that. I did have several mentors, but I remember this one. I was in a class and she said that to me, like, because I was, in victim mode, like, all this is happening to me, I'm this good wife, and like, all this is happening to me. And she said, it's your fault. And I was like, excuse me? Like, no. And she said, yeah, it's your fault. You're tolerating the behavior. So why are you crying about it? And I was like, oh my God, it like shifted everything in my mind. So, I guess I am, like, because I didn't have boundaries and I would just complain. And I'm like, oh, poor me. And my life sucked. And so then when I learned that, like, okay, I'm responsible for everything, it really did change my entire life. And it sounds so simple and obvious when I'm saying it right now, but it's not obvious. And so many people, I mean, you hear all the time, right? They'll give you a story of why something is what it is. And it's like, just stop with the stories. Like, you can make a different decision. It's just that we are so conditioned to make excuses.
No, yeah, you're preaching the gospel, and like you said earlier, accountability is showing love. When you really love somebody, you tell them the truth. That's what you do, and you do it in a loving way, but you tell them the truth, because the truth is what Jesus said. The truth sets us free. It doesn't mean somebody's going to receive the truth. They may reject it. They may be bitter. They may not like you, and that's the risk of really loving somebody. Is if you tell them the truth, it may hurt them, and it may even hurt your relationship with them. But the only chance any of us have to really make any significant changes in our life is when we start aligning our lives with the truth. And lots of times we can't see it. We need somebody outside of us to tell us that. That's why I hate therapy, because I think not regarding my therapist, the lady that we went to in my first marriage, because she was phenomenal, but I haven't really ever gone to therapy outside of that ever. But I have a lot of friends that have, and family members that have, and I hear some of the stuff that they come back with, and it's just like they're just being indulged in their nonsense. Like,
Yeah, they stay in victim mode.
and the counselors or the therapist is helping them stay in victim mode,
Mm-hmm.
because as long as the therapist is telling them, I think what's happening, as long as the therapist is telling them what they want to hear,
They keep
they'll
getting
keep coming
paid.
back. Yeah, and they keep getting paid. And now you got somebody that's been, I know people personally that have been going to the same therapist for 10 years and they're worse off than they were 10 years ago.
Yep.
You're like, it's not working, but
Yeah.
somebody's telling you what you want to hear. And so that's really kind of the first start of it with self-awareness, is accountability, and being like, I'm going to dismiss the stuff that I want to hear, and I want to start holding on to the stuff I need to hear, the
Yeah.
stuff that's going to hurt. Because if it's the truth, it's going to hurt all of us. Like the
Mm-hmm.
truth sets us free, but the truth is heavy. A lot of times it's really, really heavy and painful to hear, and certainly painful to start aligning our lives towards. But what's the alternative? Like, live in victimhood for the rest of your life and have a miserable life that you never
Right.
took accountability for, you never took ownership for, you never got your life where it could have been, and to die because it was in your mind easier to just do that than to really own up. There's only one rational way to approach life, and that's to take extreme ownership for your life and recognize that you are responsible for everything that's going on in your life.
So Adam, you it's funny too. Adam was that's my ex-husband's name.
PTSD, I'm sorry.
Side note. No, but and I don't have any like hard feelings towards him either. We obviously had different paths, but I now I lost my train of thought here. What I wanted to ask you about was sales. And is this the Doughboy company? Like, educate me a little bit on your, I guess,
So,
professional background and then how you got into social media.
yeah, no, good question. So no, Doughboy's not that. I have a number of companies, mostly pest control companies that we've built over the last 20 years, me and
Oh,
partners.
so is that the door to door where you were
Mhm.
referencing? Okay.
Yeah, so I when I was in college, I'm in Utah, and if you know anything about Utah, there's a lot of Mormons here,
Yeah.
and
Are
Mormons,
you Mormon?
yeah,
Okay.
technically, yeah, and Mormons send their boys off on Mormon missions, and so I went on
They
a
make the
mission.
best salesmen.
Exactly. So I came back. I went on a mission to California and came back to Utah, and there were all these guys that had gone on missions, a generation older than me, that had started. They figured out they could monetize their skill set of knocking on doors, and
Yeah.
so they started these companies, pest control, security systems, solar, whatever it is. They started these companies, and then they would just scoop us up, and we go
I
out in
think
the
it's
summertime.
brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I mean, I got to the point where I was in college and I'd be making, and this is 20 years ago, I was making $150,000 in the summertime, like in
Wow.
3.5 months
Yeah.
of knocking doors. So it was crazy. And I got done with my degree, and I realized, like, I either needed to find something that I was passionate about, that I really loved doing, or I needed to find something I could make a lot of money at so that I could do what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And I only had one real skill set, and that was knocking doors. I had an English degree, so I could go teach English, but I wasn't going to make
Yeah.
any money. Um, so I was like, I could make money knocking doors, and so I took the skill set and then started my own companies with partners, and we've had a lot of success stories. We've had a lot of multi-million-dollar exits. We've built up companies that are worth a lot of money, and we've done most of it off of door-to-door sales. And
Wow.
so I've hired these guys that I got hired. I got hired when I was in college, and now I'm doing the hiring. And but what I found, like I was talking about earlier, is because I'm in the weeds with a lot of the younger guys coming up. These kids that are coming out of high
Mhm.
school into college or whatever. Some of them have gone on missions, some of them haven't. Um, I have seen that so much of these kids showing up nowadays have no idea what it means to be a man. They have
Yeah.
no idea, like, how to function in life. I can see so much of the wiring and programming in their head. It's even worse than it was in mine, but I can see what was in mine already in theirs.
Hmm.
That's just teeing them up for failure. And so, even though I'm training a lot on technical sales and mindset to go do hard things, I try often, excuse me, to pass on some of the wisdom that I've learned from living on this earth for 44 years and having some runway under my belt, to try and share with them. And it's really, really rewarding to be able to help somebody with that kind of stuff. Like, I find a lot of fulfillment in it. And so I started taking the social media journey about a year and a half ago. By the way, you were like one of the first people that started following the movement, if I recall
Really?
correctly, like a while ago. Yeah, I've been doing it for about a year and a
Oh,
half. I don't know how.
I have been following you, but I thought from the time I started watching your content, I thought it was really good. So if you didn't have a big following, then I don't think I was aware of it because I
I
just
had
always loved, I'm like, this guy's good.
Well, I thought the same thing. You somehow we connected on you follow me or I follow. I
Yeah.
can't remember how it worked on social media. I saw your comment. I was like, oh, she's good. She gets it. And I was coming into this space. I think that was pretty early on. Because you said something about hey,
You
coming out to
have
Vegas to do a podcast.
rapidly grown though. Yeah, I'm in Vegas and we'll have to talk about this before I let you go, because I'm thinking of so many people that you need to do more podcasts with that you would just love. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
do you know Nick Nascimento?
I don't.
Oh, you gotta follow him. I'm gonna send you his info.
Yeah, send it my
Very
way.
similar stories, okay? He's divorced, Mormon, lives in Utah, has, I think, three sons. It has a solar company and
We're the same
is,
person.
oh, you're literally like the same person. Yeah, he's a little bit younger, but like, how crazy is that? And then there
Yeah.
was another one I was thinking of too that's in Utah. I'll have to send them all to you. But okay, so a year and a half ago, because you don't seem like you were a social media kind of guy. Like, I don't think
No,
you're a consumer of a bunch of social media.
yeah, so a year and a half ago, I had, I don't know, 1,000 followers, 1,200 followers, something like that,
Yeah.
and I was just family stuff that I'd post up, funny things that I thought, I didn't just the usual what everybody does on social, scroll through reels endlessly, like that's what I did. But I've been feeling, I had been feeling for years this voice inside of me that was telling me I needed to speak up, and it
Mhm.
was just nagging at me all the time, and I hated it because I'm like, I don't. I've got a wonderful marriage now. I've got a
Yeah.
beautiful family. I'm working hard at my business. I got success there. Like I don't need any more work on my plate. Nor do I even know what to do. I don't even know
Right.
what to do with it. Like what that means. Like I would speak up. What does that mean? But I'm feeling this like sense like I need to kind of be able to throw my 2 cents into the social media. The new town
Hmm.
square. Like this is where ideas are weighed out, and I felt like I had to speak up because there's so much stuff that's missing. Like at least from my perspective, there's so much bad stuff out there,
Yep.
and then there's so much stuff that just guys don't have any access to. And I'm thinking, from a man's point of view, because I'm not an expert at anything except maybe knocking doors and in this world of building businesses around that. Otherwise, I don't consider myself an expert on anything. I'm well read. I've studied a lot, but I know how to be a dude, and I know how
Hmm.
guys think, and so it's like I can start kind of sharing my perspective on that in a way that maybe helps some guys. I had really low expectations when I started doing it. I was just like, man, I don't even want to do this. It feels cringy. It feels pretentious. Who's going to listen to me? I don't have a PhD next to my
Yeah.
name. Um, like who cares what this guy has to say? But I just felt this voice and that had been nagging at me. And once I started posting up some content, what I thought would help guys, um, the first 6 months of it, I hated it every single day. Every night I go to bed and I'm like, I'm not doing it tomorrow. Like there's no shot. I'm not
Really?
going to because it's just like a lot of negativity in it. People disagree with you, and I didn't know how to
Yeah.
let that just kind of roll off my back. So you kind of internalize a lot of that, and then you kind of, oh, they might be right. I am an idiot. Maybe I am an idiot. You're
Yeah.
just like, I don't know, it's a difficult place to go into
Hmm.
if you don't have thick skin. And I have pretty thick skin, but still, I was like, dude, I don't like the stress. I don't like making people mad, even though I'm getting a lot of positive reinforcement from it,
Hmm.
more than I was getting negative. Um, I didn't want to do it, but that voice had gone away. That was liberating. So even though
Yeah.
I hated kind of doing it at first, like I didn't have that voice chirping anymore. And I was so grateful to not have that just kind of feeling like that pressure to say something. And my fourth or fifth reel went to like 2 million views or something like
Your
that. I can't remember.
fourth one?
Yeah, it was totally surprised, shocking. Like I had no
Wow.
anticipation of that. I had no strategy. My buddy that I hired for my company to do my videography, I was like, bro, let's just pop a camera up. I'm going to talk to you, have a conversation, send it over to me. I'll cut it up, see what
So
I can do. I'm throwing
you did the cuts?
at
You
first,
you
yeah, for the
picked
first,
them because
yeah.
that's what you're saying? I think because I think that's really important to
Hmm.
select the right clips. But okay, let's go back for a minute. This is really good because this is all of the guys that I work with. I want them to hear this, and girls, because I hear it's crazy to me, the excuses, right? They want to start posting typically for their business because they're trying to get more
Hmm.
business, right? And they have a desire to make an impact, and uh, they they want to leave a legacy. So, but when they first start, oh, I don't have time. I just don't have time. I'm busy doing revenue generating activities. And I'm like, dude, it takes 60 seconds to make a video. Like, you have a phone, do you not? Like, it has a camera on it. It's just that they have these expectations of how they should look online because they're watching other people online. But you said something that I love. You said, I had no expectations. I just put the camera up and I was like, and just started talking. But how did you even know what to talk about? Were you just like, I'm going to talk about what could help these young men? Was that the main motivation?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
it. So, I have all these years of training guys. And so I have a lot of like life and my own experiences. So I felt like I had things to say. I wasn't just like, I want to go talk and not, so I was like, dude, I want to share this and I want to share this because when I share it with my sales guys, I can see how it changes them and I can see how the wheels, start turning and the light bulb clicks on. And I'm like, so that works. Like that message is resonating. I want to share that. And of course you have to tailor it a little bit differently when you're talking to a general audience versus a specific group, like a young man in the sales office. But I had a whole bunch of that stuff that was just like, I felt like I had to get out. So that was part of it. I definitely felt like I had a message.
When you say you had to tailor it differently, because so you're getting the inspiration from what you're doing in person, which I love, because it's like, okay, I know this had an impact here. So if I share it, it's likely going to help others. So initially, were you just sharing what you were telling the young men you were working with, or how did you tailor it? Like, I think people would like to know what you mean by that.
Yeah, so in sales, so knocking doors is like the hardest thing any of these guys have ever done in their lives, and it's the worst day of their life on repeat every day of the summer. So it's just really hard. And the truth is life is hard on everybody, and potentially everybody's waking up and facing the worst day of their lives. In sales, the hardest day of their lives. In sales, you have all this technical training that you do to get guys like how to communicate, how to ask the right questions, close the deal. The reason why people buy. You have all this stuff you train on technically, which I do all the time. But what I prefer to train on, what I feel like I'm more passionate about besides the technical stuff, is mindset. How do you orient yourself in a way so that if you are in the hardest day of your life, you're in fighting shape to do it, and it doesn't just knock you down, and you just don't roll over and then get your ass kicked for the rest of your life. Like, how do you own up to that? How do you take hits on the chin like a man? How do you throw punches back? Like, what does that look like? And you couch a lot of this in stories. And so I would tell stories all the time when I'd be doing training in front of hundreds of guys or thousands of guys or whatever. I'd be like telling stories about my life or about, somebody's life I'd heard on a podcast or read about in a book. And they translate into everything. So, I just take a lot of that, like, stuff that inspires me and stuff that I can use to inspire my guys, and then tailor that a little bit so that it's more for a general audience instead of for men in general, rather than for just door-to-door sales guys. But the truth is, it's not like I still didn't know what I was doing. So maybe this is kind of weird. It's like I had these ideas of stuff that I wanted to talk about, but you put on a camera and then you're like, man, that's not me on the camera. I sound like an idiot, and like you're super self-critical and stuff, and you don't feel like your authenticity is coming through or you nailed it just right. And so you're constantly second guessing, and then you're just throwing something up there and seeing what happens.
But then the fourth one, you went viral, which is highly unusual.
Like I said, I was completely surprised by it. I had in my mind that, if I just get a handful of guys that this helps. Again, it was kind of more like the inputs. I wasn't looking, I got to be honest too, when I went into the social media space, I wasn't looking to become viral. Like, that wasn't my goal. My goal was to really share something that I thought would help people. Genuinely, that's what I wanted to do. And to the extent that more people liked it, that was encouraging. It meant that it was resonating and I was helping more people. Yeah. But that's how I oriented myself towards it. I wasn't going into it to get famous. I wasn't going into it to make money. I wasn't going into it to do any of that stuff. I was just trying to share something that I thought was from the heart and that would maybe help guys, feel like they had somebody that was speaking to them, and maybe somebody that had mentorship that was mentoring them. And as hard as it was, I was telling you how I hated doing it for the first 6 months or so. I would get all the time, and I still do. I'll try and say this without getting emotional. I can't tell you like how many guys have reached out to me and told me how it helped them, and sometimes really powerful messages. I had a guy early on tell me that he was going to kill himself that day, and he said, "I saw your reel, and it gave me enough courage to fight for the next day." And I'm not a crier, I promise. I know I talked about but this stuff gets me it hits me hard in the heart. But I've had guys reach out for me. There's a guy I'm talking to right now from prison. He's got a cell phone in prison, and he's like, "Dude," and I replied to him. Like he sent me a message, and it went to my, wherever you can't see it or whatever. I can't remember, on Instagram. It doesn't hit your primary feed
Yeah.
or whatever. I found it, and I sent him a voice message back, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything that profound. I was just responding to him, and it was just text messages and messages. Like, nobody's ever talked to me, nobody's ever responded to me, nobody's ever cared
Wow.
about me. And you're talking to me, and I'm in prison on this phone, and I just want you to know where I'm at. Now I feel like I have some chance to kind of make some changes. And the, I've heard that message. I'm not trying to sound like, I'm trying not trying to make myself sound cool right now. I just, how important it is that if you can share with people stuff that's important, it is, you should you should speak
A
up, and you
hundred
should do
percent.
it, because it will make other people's lives better, but it also makes your life a lot better. And I feel that. Like, I feel the weight of it on my shoulders now. Like, I have to keep talking about stuff, but it's so rewarding now, in spite of whatever negativity that I get from people that don't understand the message, or sometimes I deliver it poorly. Like, I come across really like, so I can see why people think maybe I come across like an asshole.
Oh, I don't
Like I'm
think that at all. In fact, yeah, no, I think the opposite. But I think that I appreciate the truth, and I resonate so deeply with what you share. And I'm not a man, right? But I watched, the reason that I say that to you about identity and men and how that affects them, I watched that happen to my own father. And everything was about, you know, his external accomplishments. And when he lost everything in 2008, I mean, my dad completely changed. Like, I didn't even recognize him anymore, and he was so angry because he had so much shame, and I really think that's what killed him. Like, he had a heart attack, massive heart attack, died at 57, was gone. And I just watched my dad slowly die. Like, I watched him die. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like, it wasn't the same man, and I know that, and now I'm working with these men, which also I never planned on doing. So I resonate with you having this intuition and following God's plan for your life, because I think it oftentimes looks a little bit different than what we thought. Um, I know that men are struggling, and men, they do have the highest suicide rate. And I get messages like that too, that say, I've always felt invisible, but like, thank you for responding to me. People feel invisible. It is so sad. And even the most successful people that you would never even think, you think that they're confident, that they're living this great life, and they feel invisible, some of them. It's crazy. And so I feel so strongly about people speaking up and sharing, but sharing like from the heart, because people need that connection, and they need the truth and that authenticity, because it's I don't know what happened, it got lost, like. And so then you got all these people just wandering through life, and they do not have a purpose, and that is what kills people, I really think, whether they commit suicide or they just keep living but they're really dying inside. It's just terrible. So clearly, God was using you, or is using you, as a vessel to change that.
I feel that way, and maybe it sounds pretentious, but I do feel like we all have things that we can use, skills and abilities we can use to contribute to the world. And you can't start contributing meaningfully to the world until you have your house in order. And so this goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, about just really driving towards your purpose, like of being the best version you can. And then you take on the responsibility when you're healthy, you take on the responsibility of a healthy relationship, where now my wife is my responsibility. I take care of her. She's on my watch. Whatever happens, she's going to be taken care of. My kids are my responsibility. And you get your house in order, and then you feel like, at least I have, like that. And then there's a calling to try and help more people. And that's what you're trying to do in this world. I think this is like where you're trying to make the world a better place than when you got here, if you can. And I think everybody should take that seriously. And if you're feeling some calling in your heart to speak up or share something, it's important that you take it seriously. I ignored it for years. Like I kept pushing it off. And now, like, again, it's not, I don't even think that I enjoy social media. Honestly, it feels like a burden, to be honest with you. Like I don't thrive in this space, and sometimes like a lot of the stuff that you do is kind of awkward. But I can't stop it now because it has helped people, because it's helped people
You
talk, and
help,
especially
yeah. So
and
many
I think
people.
men are just, again, men are given so much, women are too, but I speak from a man's point of view, and two men are just given such a terrible like framework to go into life with. Most of them haven't had a mentor. Most of the guys nowadays haven't had much of a father
I
figure, if
know.
any, in their lives. So they don't know they go into adulthood and they have no idea what it is to be a man. They're completely lost. They're basically just checking off, boxes of responsibilities that a woman's handed them, a wife or a mother or whoever, like,
Hmm.
and they wake up at some point in their life and they're drowning and there's no one there. They've given up their friends, they've given up their health, they've just gone to work, put their head down, just try to
Addiction.
show up.
I feel
Uh,
like
And
that's
and
where,
they fall into addiction because their life is a mess. And I don't even, it's easy to throw stones at people that are addicted. And even when we talk about things like pornography, it's a plague that is destroying people. But I understand it. I understand why guys get addicted to it. They don't have things to be hopeful for. They don't have a
Mhm.
purpose that's driving them to somewhere higher. And if they haven't already been wrecked by and completely destroyed by a divorce, they're in a marriage where they have no respect. The woman doesn't
Yeah.
care about them. It's because they don't respect themselves. They don't even know what self-respect looks like. They don't know how to hold boundaries. And you just see these guys that are the walking dead, and it breaks my heart. I see them all over the place. And um, yeah, I don't know. You want people to be better.
Well, I'm grateful for you. Like I'm telling you, I shared that you were going to be on the podcast, and I asked for questions, right? And I do stuff like this frequently. The most engagement about you that people, I mean, they were just up in my DMs. Like, I'm like, wow, I knew you were popular, but I'm like, engagement is so big. Like, because there's a lot of people that have followers, but they're not engaged. Like, you can tell you care and they care about you. And I mean, I just thought, wow, this is really amazing. Like, I already, of course, loved your content and was a fan myself, but that told me, okay, it's bigger than just social media. This is a movement that I feel you are creating.
Well, thank you for that. That's actually really humbling for you to say that. And it surprises me whenever I hear anything like this, honestly, to this day. Like, I'm totally surprised. Like, I still am surprised anybody's paying attention. Like, one of my buddies will be like, "Hey, I got a guy at the gym this morning, for example. He's a buddy of mine. He's like, hey, I saw one of your reels the other day. It was good." I'm like, "Yeah, so you're the guy watching it. Like, you're the dude out there." Like, in my
Yeah.
mind, it's still like, it's hard to conceptualize that what these numbers look like on social
I know.
media.
Isn't
You
that
got
amazing, though, when you think about it?
10,000, 20,000. You got 20,000 people following you. Got,
I know.
you got 1,000 people following you, whatever that is. That's a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so we live in this crazy world now, and we're on the front seat of it with our, popcorn out, just watching this unfold with all this AI and this technology. But literally, we're all connected. I'm talking to people in India. I'm talking to dudes in
Yeah.
Africa. I'm talking to guys in Asia, and we're sharing stories. And you find this commonality. Everybody's
Hmm.
going through the same stuff. It's couched in different terms, cultural terms, religious terms, everything else. But we're all on the same kind of human journey, this hero's journey, where you descend into this place. It's really difficult. You go through a lot of suffering. And ultimately, I believe we're redeemed through that suffering. And it's really important that we figure out how to orient ourselves in a healthy way towards a world that is filled with entropy, that's working against us. And that's okay. It's okay for it to be hard. It's okay for you to suffer. It's okay for you to feel depressed. It's
Right.
okay for you to feel anxious. Those are okay things. You don't want to stay there, but don't begrudge when you are there. Own that moment. Be present in it. Feel it. Experience it. Learn from it. Like, let it deepen you. Like, me going through my divorce was probably the best thing that ever happened for my life, next to having
Hmm.
kids. Like, the thing that changed me the most in a positive way. And I think of that analogy or metaphor, whatever it is, the same water that hardens an egg softens a potato. And like,
Hmm.
having
I
oriented
don't know
myself
that
in a
I've
way
heard
where
that one.
I
Yeah.
I can't remember where I heard it either. It's been around, I think, for a while, but it's something I've often thought about. Like, what is the trials that you're going through doing? And for most of us, if we don't have a framework, if we haven't had anybody talk to us like this, or if we haven't gone through things, trials and tribulations just are overwhelming, and they can blow us over. But when you can learn how to face up to them and be stoic a little bit, and this is something we've lost in our modern society, where men are supposed to be vulnerable and gush out all their emotions and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else, and be soft, and we don't, and society's constantly trying to take off the weight on men's shoulders.
Yeah.
But the reality is that we thrive under weight on our shoulders. We find our purpose in responsibilities. We find our purpose in struggling, and especially when we're struggling for somebody else, like a family. Like, that's where man finds himself, is in that. And to the extent that we're trying to mitigate that, or paint that as a bad thing, is terrible. What we need to do is orient men in a way that's constructive towards that responsibility, like taking it on, but knowing how to take it on, and knowing how to face adversities, knowing how to get knocked down and get back up, like your dad. Like, the reason why men are oriented towards external validations is because men have to feel respect, and we feel like we get respect by having things to show. And when that gets taken away from guys in a divorce, their complete self-worth, their respect is gone, which is their self-worth. So they're just shells at that point. And not that guys can't turn it around, guys do all the time. And but having a community of guys, men that are talking to you like men can talk to men, and telling us to own up to our shit and level up. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling right now, but I have a lot of women that have reached out to me, and surprisingly, more and more women follow my content
I
percentage-wise.
was gonna ask you that. That was
It
gonna
totally
be my
shocks me.
next question. Because they're, you know why? They're like, yes, like this guy gets it. Like, I need, like, you probably get messages like, help me find that kind of man, or, right? Like,
Yeah, I get some of those. A lot of times I get women reaching out to me about their husbands, and they'll say, for example, I got this message the other day. A lady messaged me, and she's like, my husband is, she said, I'm trying to motivate my husband. He's not motivated. He's not getting after anything. I'm trying to be encouraging, but he's just not moving. What can you tell me to do? And, I told her, well, what I believe is that the message isn't wrong. The messenger is wrong. A man can't
he can't hear
hear from
it
his
from
woman.
her.
No, because even if it comes across as encouraging, most time it's going to come across as critical. That's what it's going to come across, even if she's not meaning to. That's how a
Right.
man will interpret it. But even if he doesn't, on some fundamental level, he feels like he's failing her. And that's
Right.
a place a man can't be. It destroys his sense of self-worth when he feels like his own woman is finding him deficit in something. And so the message has to come from his buddies. That's why guys have to keep their friend groups around them. We have to gather in tribes, literally, or on social media, whatever that looks like, because we can talk to each other. And if I tell a dude, bro, you gotta level up, go get after it, man. You're sitting on the couch eating potato chips when you should be going out, hitting the gym and going doing this. Dude will hear it. Okay, you're right,
Yeah.
man, because you can hear that from your buddies. And good tribes make good men. And one of the worst things that have happened to us as a society in terms of our culture is that we've conditioned men, as soon as they get married or get into a career, or whatever that looks like, post high school and college, that their friends are expendable, that they should get rid of their friends.
Yeah.
And the truth is, some friends you should get rid of. There's some bad
Right.
element. You got guys that are not good elements in your life, but even those guys, I mean, you need your tribe around you, and it's good tribes that make good men. And to the extent that we have become isolated and given that up, has been really, really detrimental for everybody, women included. And that's ultimately what Doughboy is. So to answer your question earlier, what Doughboy
Yeah.
is me just taking my business knowledge, experiences, whatever else, and creating an online group for men, a fraternity for guys to come together where we have these types of conversations we're having right now. And
That's the
we work through
fireside
this.
chat. Is that what
Yeah.
they're okay. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So just and trying to help everybody feel like they're part of it. It's hard to scale, and it's hard to get everybody to feel like they're contributing, but to feel like there's somebody that's looking after you, and there's daily accountability with everybody. And I'm hosting live trainings with guys every single Sunday where we get on calls and I go over what I think is most important to share on particular aspects of masculinity, and then we have conversations about it. But essentially trying to recreate tribes for guys that have no
Yeah.
friends. There was a poll just recently done. I saw this on somebody else's content and then looked it up, where men were asked how many close friends they had. And the most common answer was zero. That was the most common
No.
answer men gave, is they had zero close friends. And you think
Wow.
about that psychologically. How does that affect somebody when you don't have
Wow.
anybody that cares about you? Nobody, maybe your mom still, that's all you got, that cares about what's going on in your life and checks in on you. Nobody else out there cares, like if you show up or not, or if you're there. It just breaks my heart,
Well,
honestly.
and a
Like
lot of them, they have kids that they don't speak to and that kind of thing too. And then that eats away at, I mean, there's so many, it's a problem across the board. And I think it's because honestly, our lack of emotional intelligence, I think that should be taught in school. we should be taught these things instead of the useless information that that we are taught, quite frankly. I mean, it's not all useless, but most of it. Um, okay, so Doughboy was born from the social media, but like that was never the plan. That just
No, yeah,
okay.
no.
So
It
I
was
love
just me
this.
seeing a lot of guys not having any group of friends, people asking for more content, like, hey, how can I get this? And so I'm trying to create something, and you know, you got to keep the lights on, and you got to pay for the bills. And I'm a business guy, and so you got to have, you know, you got to be making some money on this ultimately if you're going to be able to
Yeah.
sustain it for very long. In terms of this type of community, you have regular content, it's not that, but so I've tried to make it just really, really affordable for everybody who wants to be a part of it. That it's not cheap. Cheap. It's not less expensive because of the value that isn't there. It's because I want everybody who can, especially guys that barely have two pennies to rub together. I want them to be
That
able to
need
have.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, and we
What?
need them.
How
Like
much
as
is
men, we
it?
need each
The
other.
program?
It's $75 a month, and that
Wow.
includes
Yeah.
a lot of different resources and tools. That's we have daily accountability journals. I've got AI text messages that go out to guys every
Yeah.
morning that follow up on their accountability journal. So
I love
it's like
it.
my voice talking to them. It's totally crazy. And then we do every Sunday. I do live huddles with them, and we have in-person events, and we've got chat groups and stuff
Do
like
you
that.
do
So
the
it's a whole.
in-person events there in your office there?
We haven't launched, so this just barely started. I launched Doughboy we did a soft launch a couple weeks ago, and we're still
A couple
working out a lot of
weeks
the.
ago? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's actually officially launched it. We've been kind of talking about it. It was like a couple weeks ago. So
No
that's just
way.
barely started. But we got a lot of stuff like on the landing pages and stuff we're working out, and the AI and tech. There's little glitches here and there. So it's the beginning of the movement,
Yeah.
and I hope it turns into a movement.
Oh,
But
it's going to.
it
I
just
can
barely
see
started.
it already. You know what I'm getting a like vision of? I don't know if you're gonna like this, but I'm gonna share it anyway. Is like a dating community where you like match up these. You know, you transform the men, and then there's a women's side, and then bring them together, and then they create these like beautiful families or something.
Me and my team have had multiple conversations about that. It's so funny you just said that. Like multiple. We're like, okay, so we get Doughboy going, and then we get really dynamic. My wife, by the way, is phenomenally dynamic. She's a
Yeah.
powerhouse of a woman. Like she was the #1 female sales rep of all time in door-to-door
Oh
sales.
my
Like this
gosh,
girl's
really? I want
she's a
to. I
beast.
want to
Yeah.
do a podcast with her. Does she do podcasts?
Yes, and she would do it with you. She
I would
she
love.
she would make in a summertime. She would make in a summertime like $350,000 knocking doors. Like
Wow.
this girl is insane. But like take her and other women and create like a dough girl or the equivalent of
Yes.
whatever we call that community, and then we could like have
Beautiful.
join communities together and bring people, husband and wives could come
Yeah.
be part of it, or you could be single, and then we've even talked about like the whole matchmaking thing. So
No,
who
I
knows
really
what the
can
details are.
see it. You know, and you're going to do a podcast with my boyfriend too. I think you responded to him like yesterday. 'Cause
Okay.
I got to tell you a funny story. I guess he had messaged you, I don't know when, weeks ago. And then I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing a podcast with Adam." And he's like, "What? He's doing one with you, but he didn't respond to my message." I said, "Yeah, I'm like he responded to mine, you know." But anyway, you finally got back to him. But I thought that was funny. So yeah, and he loves
Tell
your
him.
content.
Oh, and I appreciate that. No, tell him, and I'm excited to do the podcast with him. Tell him I get anxiety looking at my DMs, so oftentimes I just don't for the sake of
Yeah.
keeping my sanity. And so when I do, I just go through like the top ones sometimes.
Right.
And
Sure.
eventually I'll catch up.
Yeah.
Eventually I'll go through it all and respond to everybody. But sometimes I'll just pop through like the first 5, and then
Yeah.
I have to put my phone down and get back to work or something like that. So it wasn't for lack of a desire. It was just finally
Yeah.
getting around to like.
No, I mean I figured as much, but it was just funny. I was like, yeah, well, I got one. So there are several people I want to connect you with, but there's a community in Vegas, and this is actually where I host my in-person studio, because it's a real estate brokerage, and they have a media company, and they have a huge workshop space, and they have a community called Be Legendary. So kind of similar, but it's for men and women. That they just kind of got going. But he has a great podcast, great guy, family man, has 4 kids, a wife. I think you should be on his podcast too. So if you come to Vegas, because how far, like, where exactly in Utah are you?
No, I'm in Ogden, so it's. And I never drive to Vegas, but I go down. I actually go to St. George quite a bit, which is only a
Yeah.
couple hours from Vegas. We go down there just to kind of vacation all the time. But I fly into Vegas periodically, and I will just make a trip. I mean, it's an easy flight. It's like
Well,
an
yeah,
hour-long
let
flight.
me know because I mean, several guys that have great podcasts that would love to have you on and you can, get your message out there to even more people. I mean, I really do love what you're doing, and I think it's so necessary for these men. And, and I'm on a similar mission myself to like help them know themselves and stand firm in their beliefs and their values, with branding, with personal branding. So, and I think it's important just to mention, I love how that it was kind of an accident, to be honest, like how this all transpired for you. You just had a calling of what you needed to share. So your intention was just, I want to help people. And if I help 5 people, then fine. If I help more, great, whatever. But that then turned into now this other business. But your main goal, your main objective wasn't to make money. It was to make a difference. And I think people need to realize that, because a lot of these successful men, because that's who come to me, like they've already achieved success. Now they're trying to figure out social media. Instead of focusing on the instant ROI, focus on the kind of difference that you want to make, and that ROI will follow. But like people don't get that.
100%. And again, I'm only speaking from my limited perspective in this space. I have no business acumen when it comes to social media, but yeah, no, you're hitting the nail on the head. Oh, sorry, I'm getting a phone call right now. When I came into this, I didn't need money. My businesses are doing really well. I've had a lot of success. I feel really, really grateful for, and I've had a lot of things. Yeah, I'm in a very strong financial position, so I'm not doing it to make money. And even with the membership fee that I'm doing with Doughboy, it's more that I have a team now that's on board, that's doing all this work and creating stuff and creating tools and managing it. So we have to kind of pay the bills at this point. But it really has never been about that. And I think that sets you free. I know people are coming in here, they've got to make money, especially if they're not already set up, then they've got to figure out how to monetize it. And I understand that. But I think as soon as you start, I guess, as a door-to-door salesperson, here's an interesting little take on this. When I knock on people's doors, I've knocked on thousands and thousands and thousands of doors of people, and I've learned really quickly that if I was trying to get something out of them, even though I'm showing up to sell them something, if I'm trying to get something out of them, it's a really big mountain to get over, because people sense that. There's a lack of authenticity in that. If I'm trying to sell them pest control, what I learned fairly quickly was not to try and sell them anything. I'd knock on people's doors and just kind of see how they're doing and try and connect with them. And then I would just kind of tell them what I was doing. And I didn't care whether they signed up or not. Like, honestly, if I was really doing well, I didn't care whether they signed up for pest control. I just cared that I had a human experience with them and that we had a chance to connect, and that I was doing the best that I could to present myself in a way that would let their walls come down. And then when their walls would come down, almost always it'd be like, well, what is it that you're doing? Okay, yeah, we've been seeing ants in the kitchen. Oh, come on in. And it would just be this really cool human experience instead of me trying to sell them something. Because I think the second you try to sell something, or you're trying to get something out of somebody, whatever that looks like, whether that's in a relationship or whether that's, business or whatever, the authenticity goes out the window. It's no longer an authentic engagement anymore. It's an exchange, which there's a time and place for exchanges. That's how business is done. That's how selling is done. I totally get that. But when you're trying to connect with people, an exchange is a hard way to do that. You want to just find human connection with them. And the only way you do that really is by being authentic, not having any walls up, not having any pretenses up, not trying to get anything out of them. And when somebody senses that, what invariably happens is their walls come down too. Now it's like invites them to just have a human experience with you. And then it's interesting. I can't tell you how many stories. You knock doors. I've met somebody. I've been on their door for 5 minutes. Now I'm in their house and I'm signing them up for pest control. And they want me to marry their daughter, or they want me to,
sure,
go to bingo night, or they want to tell me all their secrets, like all the stuff they don't tell their own family. They just divulge to you. It just comes out. And you're like, nobody's ever heard this except this door-to-door sales guy. But it just shows you how authenticity and having a human experience is so priceless to people, and how rare it is that people actually just can talk to somebody without any kind of judgment or without any kind of like they're trying to get something out of me.
Yes.
I can just be myself. And so like, that's what I've tried to do on social media is like, dude, whatever people hate it or love it or whatever, I'm just going to say it like the only way I know how to say it. I'm going to say it the best that I can. And then it's hopefully feels authentic to people and doesn't feel like I'm trying to sell them on something or convince them or win them over to my side or anything. Just a dude, you know, pouring out his thoughts in front of a camera.
Yeah, I love it. It's everything I believe in and that I preach. Like, you can feel the energy even through the internet. I really believe that. Like, you just feel it. You can feel it. That's why your videos are resonating with people so deeply, is because they're not scripted. I mean, right? Like,
Yeah,
you're
they're
just
not.
speaking from the heart. Like, you didn't crack the code. You were called to share and you shared, and God is helping you reach people. Like, that's how I see it. So,
Me too.
I love it. Well, okay,
Thank you.
I got to connect you with all these other people because, yeah, this is so good. And so Doughboy just launched 2 weeks ago?
Soft launch. We haven't really marketed it much, again, because we're working out kind of the bugs. People can join. Anybody who wants to, who's interested, they can also DM me. I can give more information on it. I'm happy to share with guys. I want people to just definitely feel like they're getting value out of it.
Yeah.
Again, we priced it low enough that if it's going out to eat twice in a month, you know, less than going out to eat twice in a month, you can afford to, you know, be part of a community that can help make some real permanent changes in your life. But at the end of the day, I want people to really feel like they want to do it. I'm not trying to sell anybody on it. I just want guys who feel like they don't have anywhere else to, not just guys that don't. There's a lot of very successful people out there, but they don't know a lot of different areas in a lot of other areas of life. They haven't been successful. And so in this curriculum and the training, it's to basically cover the entire gambit of masculinity and create the comprehensive man, a man who's leveling up and improving in all aspects of life. And I think it's going to be pretty good.
No, I know it's going to be good. Are you going to be speaking, or are you interested in speaking on stages at conferences and stuff?
Sure, I can. I do it all the time. Like, I've been speaking on my own stages. My company, we have big, you know, season opener events where we kick off, and I've been on something I've done most of my career. So yeah.
I would love to connect you with, do you know Ryan Pineda?
I don't know. I should.
You don't know anyone, probably because you're not on social media.
I'm not on social media a ton,
Okay,
except to like manage my account.
I'm going to send you a few people.
Okay.
I'm going to send it to your DMs though, so make sure you check. But he's made a huge impact. Well, and you know, like Ed Milet, right?
Oh yeah.
So
I've met him before, actually.
You need to be doing more with him. I think there's so many people I can think of that I'm like, you need to be connected with these people, because this message just has to be. I'm like a connector. When I see something, I gotta connect the dots with the right people. So
I love
I'll
it.
probably be blowing up your DMs with, hey, reach out to this person, or connecting you.
I look forward to it, Kate. I appreciate the enthusiasm and the support, and I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you being on your podcast. Like, you have really, really good energy. And like I said, when you first started, I don't remember when we first linked up on social media, but I remember seeing your content. And I was like, man, she is good. Like, you have good energy.
Oh, thank you.
And you have a really good message. And so, anyways, I appreciate it. I appreciate everything.
Yeah, that means a lot to me. And I mean, it's deep in my heart, because that's been my life experience with my father and my ex-husband. You know, like, I feel for him, like, because of that addiction and not being able to, you know, I get it. It's like, there's so many deep wounds and people need help. That's the main point, is like, they need your message. And I'm excited that you decided to turn on the camera, even though it wasn't your favorite thing to do, because look at now what's happening. So how do you describe it? Community for men to level up their masculinity?
Yeah, it's like we have all the different aspects. So teaching guys how to make more money, teaching guys how to get in better shape, teaching guys how to think, how to orient themselves towards God, a higher truth, and find their own identity, how to be a better father, how to be a better mother, or partner, not lover. I was trying to say, it's just all these different articles of
not how to be a woman. Yeah.
Not how to be a woman, but how to approach women with a little bit of a better framework than what most
Hmm.
guys are handed. You know, how to
Okay.
manage a relationship with a good woman, and like how to find a good woman, how to be a good man so you can attract a good woman. Those types of things are
I
a lot
love
of the
that.
content that we cover. So it's a broad spectrum. It's not just like get rich sort of thing, but we do talk about that. I got buddies of mine that are very successful as well. Some guys are far more successful than me. They're part of this movement. They believe in it. They're going to be
Mhm.
part of the speakers in the what we're when we're hosting the Sunday calls. They'll be involved in that to help guys really dial in on the business side of stuff, and so it's a whole thing.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. Real quick, one question that I realized I forgot to ask you about alpha men and women. Well, how do I want to position this question? Okay, when it comes to paying for things, even if the woman has money, do you believe the man should still pay because of like energetically, is that the right thing? Like there's a debate around about this. I'm just curious your thoughts.
Yeah, I 100% believe the man should be paying. Like I believe in traditions, and I believe that there is a precedent set where when a man, the chivalry should exist, and we should have women that we treat with deference. Any woman that we come in
Mhm.
contact, there should be some deference. We should hold the door for them. We should look out for them. We should protect them. And if a woman is gracious enough to go on a date with you, you should pay for that, for her going on the date. It gets hard though because in the world that we live in, women are so entitled now, and there's a lot of toxicity in that. So it's hard for men to step up to that. I think, and to have women in that sort of, what's the word I would use? Like, I mean, women have, at least for me, have always been something like angels. I think of my mother,
Mhm.
I think of my daughters, I think of my wife today. They redeem me, they save me, they make me better. Like, and they deserve all the deference in the world. And because I have daughters, I believe every woman should be treated with deference. Every woman is somebody else's daughter, and I know the feminists will
Yeah.
blow up. She's a human, not a daughter. And I'm like, I get it, she's a human, but I orient myself as a father towards my own daughters, how much I love them, and then I can recognize why all women should receive that sort of love and deference from men. So I think as a man, we have a sacred responsibility to uphold femininity in society and to treat it like it's sacred because it is. And we can do that with small acts like paying for dinner, you know, in
Mhm.
the movies, or like holding the door for this girl that you're taking out on a date who's, you know, she's beautiful.
I think that it makes a difference. And I just think, again, energetically, it's important. And same for the woman to be able to care for and nurture the man, like preparing a meal or, things like that. I'm not saying the man can't do it, but I think that we are designed to want to do that. Like a woman wants to take care of the home and the man. And so men don't take that away from her, because
Right.
you want control or whatever, you think you're doing her a favor. Like allow her to be the nurturing role, I think. So,
I agree. And men were wired to provide and protect. You know, that's where we really find ourselves, is in that position where we're providing and protecting for others, and it's a great place to be.
right. So, okay, well, we could talk all day. Keep me in the loop on all your events,
Yeah.
and then I would love to, yeah, I mean, if you would come to Vegas, I will do a podcast lineup for you to appear on. Like I'm already visualizing it in my mind. And then an event. Like I think that there's two different event spaces that I know of that would be happy to host you. And you could reach, 150 people, or you're probably going to do a bigger one, I'm sure, at some point. But just
I'm
I'm
in for
throwing
it,
it out
Jade.
there.
All right. We'll make it happen. This is
Okay.
manifesting it already, and
Okay, good.
again, I'm really grateful for being on the show. I think I love these conversations for personal reasons. I just think this is how we really heal as a society, I think, and really make differences is when we start talking to each other, and
Yeah.
we we do so with respect and trying to understand other perspectives and to try and share this message. So I appreciate you being part of all that. It's really encouraging to me.
Same to you. And connect me with your wife because I'd love to do a podcast with her
Okay.
as well.
I'll link you up.
Okay.
She'll love it. And you guys will get along great.
Yeah, no, this is going to be a good. I think we'll be collaborating more. I can feel it. We're going to, as I like to say, we're changing lives.
Yes.
So,
Yes, indeed.
all right, Adam.
Okay.
See you
Thanks.
later.